And Lara, the young women, a fascinating poll showing that young women are more inclined to say they want to leave the United States of America. Yeah, record numbers of younger women want to leave the U.S. 40% age 15 to 44. 15 said they would move abroad permanently if they had the opportunity. What's that all about?
Laura Ingraham spoke with Lara Trump on her show, and they discussed the recent Gallup poll that found that 40% of younger women between the ages of 15 and 44 said that they would consider moving abroad permanently if they could. In 2014, that 40% was just 10%. And, a lot has happened in this country since 2014 in particular. Just for context, Donald Trump ran for president in 2015 and won in 2016. And I'm a little curious as to why Laura Ingraham chose to cover this story on her show at all. It isn't breaking news by any means. It's an interesting cultural benchmark, but not one that works in favor of the general narrative that Fox News generally tries to push. I know that Fox News is, of course, trying to talk about anything besides the Epstein files right now and that trove of emails that were just released. But even in discussing this poll, they didn't really get into any of the reasons that were cited as to why women age 15 to 44 in this country might just be a little bit disillusioned right now. Instead, we got a response from Laura Trump about blah, blah, blah. This is so sad. This is the greatest country in the world.
That's
What is
totally
that?
crazy. I dare anyone to. It's insane, Laura. But this is the messaging of the Democrats. They have obviously done quite a number on the youth of this country. We have to get back to not only educating our students on reading and writing and math, because those scores have proven to be abysmal, but we also have to get back to teaching our kids to love this country, that this is the greatest country on earth. I would tell all of those young women, I dare you to find anywhere else in the world where you have the freedoms, the opportunities, where you are limited only by your imagination and your work ethic. That is the United States of America. We've got to remind our young population of that, because that is one of the saddest things I've ever heard.
We've had an opportunity to travel many places around the world. To me, there is no better place than America. If you were born here, George Bush used to say, you won life's great lottery.
Exactly
You're an educated American woman. Your ticket, you write it yourself. But people want to leave.
Yeah, I think it's true. When you travel other places, which we both love to do, it's always fascinating, but then you're always glad to come home and you always appreciate the great things about this country. There's a lot of parallels in this group between the vote that we saw on Tuesday in New Jersey and in Virginia when you look at the age range. The other thing is that it doesn't ask, are you going to leave? It just says, basically it's like at a cocktail party, would you say, I really want to get out of here. I really want to leave the country. But they're not actually leaving the country. So it's just complaining, and there's a lot of Trump derangement syndrome.
They all want to be Emily in Paris.
Oh, yeah, but they want, and I think it's a protest.
Emily in New York.
It's a protest vote against the president, I think, because it traces right back to when he was nominated, And so while you have so many young women at these turning point events, and the other side is thriving in a huge way, this group likes to, at least at cocktail parties, say that they want out. But I don't think they're going anywhere.
So in other words, she's saying that we need to be heavier on the propaganda because we've been slacking on it, and people are starting to open their eyes and ears to what is really going on in this country as well as in the rest of the world. The talking point is played out to the point that Fox News feels even more so than usual, as if it exists in a weird insulated bubble where they don't realize that they are using stale talking points. Their points are so surface level that, again, I wonder why they even bothered covering this poll at all. I suppose at best, they could have hoped to further scare their audience into believing that Fox News people are sharing a country with people who hate their country, or at the very least, don't appreciate the country they're living in. Maybe they're desperate to perpetuate the long-held American belief that this is the best country in the world and no other country could possibly come close. And you know what? Don't even look at these other countries. Don't even think about them. Don't even pay attention to anything that's going on outside of the United States. America first, MAGA, freedom, etc. What Laura Ingraham left out when discussing the poll is that this is the second year in a row when 20% of Americans, not just younger women, said that they would like to leave the United States, but yes, that number is largely being driven by younger women. And you can see from the chart that women aged 15 to 44 have disproportionately grown disillusioned with life in the United States when compared to other groups. Notably, both men and women over the age of 45 are not interested in leaving, but anecdotally speaking, older people tend to be less inclined to move than younger people anyway. They've usually got more roots put down. Gallup also describes a disparity between younger American men and women that is greater than what they've recorded when conducting similar polls in other countries. Also, while the trend started to tick upward at the start of the Trump era, it more or less persisted through the Biden administration and into the second Trump administration. So overall, this suggests that all of this is less about which party is in office and more about the overall culture of our country, how that culture has changed over the past decade, and how many of those changes have negatively impacted women and the things that women care about. Also, Gallup clarifies that they're recording the number of people who would like to leave the country and would if they could. The poll results do not necessarily reflect or imply that all of these people actually will one day leave the country. This trend of young women seeking to flee is more or less an American trend as well. Despite the incredulity of people like Laura Ingraham and Lara Trump, there are plenty of reasons for American women to be dissatisfied with life in the United States. Of course, many of the reasons are political. From Gallup, in 2025, there is a 25-point gap in the desire to migrate between Americans who approve and those who disapprove of the country's leadership. Desire to permanently leave the U.S. was not always such a politicized issue. Between 2008 and 2016, migration aspirations were similar regardless of views toward the country's leadership. After Trump's election, 2017 marked the first time this gap exceeded 10 points. During Trump's first term, the difference in migration aspirations between those approving and disapproving of national leadership averaged 14 points. Under Biden, the gap narrowed to 8 points before climbing to 25 points in 2025, the first year of Trump's second term in office. Younger women tend to be more aligned with the Democratic Party and its values, so that trend makes sense. As far as why this could all be, Gallup suggests that generally speaking, younger women are losing faith in America's institutions, such as the government, the judicial system, the military, and the integrity of our elections. Decreases in confidence in institutions have correlated with increases in desires to leave. Gallup even suggests that one event in particular could possibly, maybe, have made young women in this country feel betrayed by the institutions. Again, one in particular that were supposed to protect them. The Supreme Court's 2022 Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization decision, which overturned the constitutional right to abortion, may have contributed to the drop in younger women's National Institutions Index score, particularly the steep decline in their confidence in the judicial system, which fell from 55% in 2015 to 32% in 2025, more than any other age group. However, when it comes to desire to migrate, the Dobbs decision alone may have played a more limited role, given that the trend in wanting to leave began years before the ruling. And yeah, just the fact that the right to women's health care, which is what this is really about, was even a subject of debate in this country, that alone was a betrayal. Let's couple that with the fact that our president has said horrible things about women and done horrible things to women. Also, many of the men in our country are now openly discussing taking away our right to vote. Then there is the general misogyny wrapped up in Christo-nationalism that has become so much more pronounced in this country over the past decade. We still can't get a woman president. Women are losing high-powered positions across government organizations because they're being called DEI hires. There is no maternal health support, no maternity leave. Childcare is wildly unbelievably expensive. Community support systems have been eroded. The federal, state, and local levels are dismantling and degrading public education. Public health, for that matter, is a nightmare. Women's labor is still undervalued and underpaid, and I could go on, but I know you get it. Also, in this modern world, it's a lot harder for a country like the United States to promote the idea that we are the best country in the world. Americans can now see what goes on in other countries easier than we ever could. We've visited other countries, many of us now, especially the younger people. We're not as fearful of the rest of the world as previous generations may have been. We see that even with issues non-specific to women, there are plenty of reasons why someone might choose to live elsewhere. The United States has long benefited from the isolationism that our geography provides in pushing the idea that we are the best country in the world. If Americans never traveled anywhere, if it was harder for them to access other places, more expensive, more time-consuming, etc., they'll likely just become complacent and comfortable where they are. That world is gone, though. People have options and they're exploring them. A country can only expect its people to be loyal if that country is providing certain things in exchange for that loyalty. Blind loyalty or loyalty for the sake of loyalty is not something that I personally think should be celebrated. If a relationship changes for the worse, then you are not crazy or a bad person for wanting a divorce. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.